Howdy, everyone. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to be doing a little bit of engine baffle work here, mainly because I want to get the back of the baffles somewhat fitted because the oil cooler and the oil mount that I'm using, the cooler interfaces with the back side of the baffle, and I wanted to get the baffles, at least the back half of the baffles, fitted so that I can install my oil cooler and get the oil lines connected. So I've been working with that, and I've got a few things to point out to you guys. The first thing that I had noticed was I got written instructions included with my baffle kit. Now, I ordered my baffle kit not that long ago, maybe about a year ago. And I also, of course, had purchased the thumb drive for my airplane for the RV7. Each individual airplane comes with its own. You can order a thumb drive. The thumb drive, if you don't already know, has all of the prints, all of the written instructions, and all of the optional pieces, parts, drawings as well. So the prints that came with the actual baffle kit, these are considered an optional print. So you don't get this with any of the regular aircraft kits. You can see down here it says OP. That's an optional print or an optional part, I believe, drawing. So I bought the baffle kit like a year ago. I got these written instructions included with it. Prior to buying this, I had purchased the thumb drive, and the thumb drive I bought probably about 3 years ago. So the thumb drive is actually older. But I noticed that the prints that I got with the baffle kit are actually older than the prints that are shown on the thumb drive. The thumb drive prints are newer by date, and they are revision 2 for the baffles. So these written drawings that came actually with the kit are from 2006 with no revisions. The instructions from the thumb drive for the baffle kit are newer. I don't recall the date, but they're up to revision 2. So I'm using the instructions and the drawings from the thumb drive. I kind of cross-reference that a little bit with these paper drawings. I don't know what the revisions are. If I recall correctly, the updated print on the thumb drive does not list the individual revisions, so I don't know what they are. But it's just something to be aware of. So I'll leave it at that. It's just something to consider. And I usually do that with all of my prints. Anytime I break out a paper drawing, I look at the date and I look at the revision, and then I'll compare that drawing to the drawings on the thumb drive. Now, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent here, but just because a print is newer does not necessarily mean that that's the print you should use. And I'm just going to use this as an example. If, let's say, I bought this baffle kit and it came with these written instructions, it may be wise to use the instructions that actually came with the kit that you purchased. Sometimes, and I can't recall any specifics, but I have come across where I had purchased something that came with drawings, and later on in life the part itself was changed and the drawings were also changed for that part. But if you try to use the new drawings with the old design of that part, they don't play nice. So keep that in mind as well. Enough about prints. So here we are with the baffles. So this is the back baffle. This is for the number 4 cylinder. So if I can take this over to the airplane, I've got the airplane covered, but of course my engine is under there. So this would be basically the back left corner baffle, like this. So when you go through it, you'll notice right away that there's a provision here in this corner for a oil cooler. And I can show you that here. So this is the back corner. This, of course, is the cutout for the oil cooler. Now, I'm not using this, but the way that the prints are drawn and the way that they talk about it in the written instructions, this is that same back corner. You can see the cutout. You've got this reinforcement piece here, and you've got some other reinforcement pieces here. They talk up here, there's a note that basically says that if you want this oil cooler reinforcement plate and its associated pieces parts, that's a separate kit that you need to purchase. Since I am not using the oil cooler in this location, I did not buy that kit. The thing that I'm not entirely pleased with is that these instructions only discuss putting the oil cooler here. There aren't any written instructions guiding you through the process if you are not going to use the oil cooler in this location. So since there are no specific instructions to assemble the baffle with no oil cooler attached to it, you kind of have to make it up as you go. Just a little bit. It's not the end of the world. At this point, you should be kind of accustomed to doing that kind of work anyway, in my opinion. So all I had done was this. I took the individual pieces parts that came with the baffle kit, and I put them together without any modification and without any provisions for the oil cooler. It's pretty straightforward. When you look, what came with the actual baffle kit is this piece here. This is a spacer. They tell you in the written instructions to reference this drawing, and this drawing came with the written instructions. And you can see when you look at this, they tell you to use a certain type of aluminum material, and then you're supposed to make that spacer from scratch. My material came already cut to size except for the length. I just had to cut it shorter, and then I had to round off the corners. That piece is actually sandwiched in here. It's just a thin metal strip, and it's between this piece and this piece. It's up underneath here. So all I had done was just lay it up even with this edge. I marked these two holes, and then I rounded off this corner here. And then I had just fitted this piece to the top and this piece to the side here. Now when you go to mount this piece, there are no pre-punched holes. There are pre-punched holes in this part. These flanges are all pre-punched, but the parts that this mount to don't have any pre-punched holes. So when you look at it, you have holes here for a reinforcement piece of angle goes here, and there is a pre-punched hole back here. You might be able to see the cleco coming in this way. You do not want to cover up those holes with this piece. If I brought this piece any lower, it would have covered up that hole back in here with that cleco that comes through. It would have covered up that hole. And if I came down any lower, it would also cover up this hole here if I brought this piece lower. So I just position this to clear rivets that are going to go through these couple of holes that I just pointed out. So I laid that where I was comfortable with it, not blocking any holes, and I used a, I'm drawing a blank, a square. I put a square in here. I put the square up against this edge here, I believe, and along the bottom part of the flange here, just to make sure that this piece was square to this piece along this flange. Put it in there square, marked the holes, drilled the holes on this flange, and then when it came time to do the holes here where these clecos are, you want to make sure that this top edge here is parallel to this top edge here, because this could potentially sag or it could potentially stick up. So just make sure that you get this face parallel with this edge here, and then you can reach underneath and mark these holes and drill them. Once you get those clecoed in place, then you can do the same thing on this other side. You can mark these holes and drill them, these down here. And there's one here where this cleco is. It's a lot of information to digest, but when you go through these individual parts, because these are all individual parts. This is by itself, this bottom one's by itself, this one is by itself, this piece here is by itself, and then this spacer that you make. So those are all individual parts. When you go through the written instructions, when you look at the prints and kind of walk through it, it will make a little bit more sense to you. But my point is that since there aren't any written instructions on how to do it, unless you're using the oil cooler, since I am not, I had to kind of make this up a little bit as I went. The things that I found to be aware of is you want this piece to be square to this piece. That's why I used my my square in here to get this laid out correctly in relation to this piece. And then you want these surfaces to be nice and parallel. You don't want this to be twisted. That's basically what I'm trying to make a point of. So I have a few more holes to match drill, and then I'm going to I don't know if I'll start riveting this together or not. I'm not quite there yet, but I've got a few more holes to drill, so let me do those. Oh, another thing was this side piece here. This gets bolted to the engine, and you can see there's a cutout here. This fits around the valve cover. Fit this piece first to the engine and do all your trimming, because with this piece completely by itself, it's really easy to do. Once you get this riveted to other things, it would be very difficult to try to fit this around your valve cover. So I've got aftermarket valve covers, so I had to trim this back quite a bit, but it was easy to do. Just take your time. You still want to maintain a nice tight fit, because if you get too big of a gap, then you're going to have air bleed through here, and that defeats the purpose of having a baffle in the first place. So take this piece, trim it and fit it to the engine. Once you're done with that, make the piece, that spacer that goes in between here, make that next, and then you can start fitting this piece in place. And again, make sure it's nice and square and true. All right, so that's all I've got for now. I will talk to you guys later.